My name is Miranda Fergus, and this video is to explain to you the Michelle Carter case. Michelle Carter is a girl who convinced her boyfriend, Conrad Roy, to commit suicide over text message. Some people feel as though she should have been convicted because if it wasn't for her, she would not have done it. And some people don't feel as though she should be convicted because how can you convince someone to commit suicide just by using your words? This kind of relates to the article God That Was Awesome by Ronson that we talked about in class. That article really shows how an online presence can change someone's life. And that you're going to see that Michelle Carter's life was completely changed after this. So on the left side is the article that supports her being guilty by Melissa Hanson, and on the right side is the article that supports her not guilty by Tisnem Nasrallah. So the first thing we're going to talk about is before the suicide itself. Both articles mentioned how Conrad Roy previously attempted to commit suicide. This is one of my arguments as to why neither of these articles are biased, because they both bring up both sides and present all of the information, but then really explain why they feel one way. I feel as though if one article was biased, then they would be withholding information from us. So the article by Melissa Hanson in Why She Should Be Guilty is because in the previous suicide attempts, he has stopped himself and he has sought help. This time, as you'll see later in the video, he stopped himself and was talking to his girlfriend, and she told him to get back in the car. The opposing side, where she should not be guilty, just says that he has suicidal tendencies. He was suicidal in the past, so even if she wasn't in the picture, he might have committed suicide anyway because he has that kind of past. We'll go down to the actual suicide happened July 12th, 2014. On the left side, we have why she should be convicted, and it brings up a lot of valid arguments. The first being that Michelle Carter knew that it would take up to 15 minutes for Conrad to die in the car, and she did not do anything about it. The day before the event, she asked Conrad Roy for his parents and sisters' phone numbers. So she had the phone number, she knew his location, and she still did not call anyone, tell anyone, call the authorities. And a major part of this is that he got out of the car and she told him to get back in. And later on, she told one of her friends that she just stayed on the phone with him and heard him die. So the other side, the not guilty argument, mentions how she had Conrad Roy's best interest in mind. The article brings up how she felt bad for him, that he has tried this before and has never been able to actually go through with it, and she truly believed that this is what he wanted. So she wanted to help him to stop the turmoil in his mind. After the incident, I have a text message from her to one of her friends saying, "I knew he would do it all over again the next day, and I couldn't let him live this way, the way that he was living anymore. I just couldn't do it. I wouldn't let him." So she knows that he's been talking about this. She knows that he previously tried and couldn't go through with it, and she just wanted to help him go through with it finally. So she was convicted of involuntary manslaughter. The article that says why she should be convicted said that she created a toxic environment and she failed to call for help. So the act of her telling him to get back in the truck constituted wanton and reckless conduct, which created a situation where there's a high degree of likelihood that substantial harm would result. And that was really the main basis as to why she was convicted. And then the other side said that she should not have been convicted because it violates both her First Amendment and Fifth Amendment rights. The First Amendment is the freedom of speech, and it was violated because her words alone did not kill him. If she was standing on the side of the bridge and told him to jump and pushed him, then yes, she should be convicted. But she did not. She just told him, and the amendments say that we can say whatever we want. The second argument is that it was a violation of her Fifth Amendment right, and the the Fifth Amendment right says that you should have appropriate indictment by the police, and they say that this is not appropriate indictment because the law of involuntary manslaughter is too vague. Nasrullah, the author, quotes, "The vague common law of involuntary manslaughter fails to provide guidance to prevent arbitrary discriminatory enforcement in morally fraught cases involving suicide." And then it goes on to mention how Massachusetts is the only state to uphold the conviction of a physically absent defendant who encouraged another person to commit suicide with their words alone. Another major part in the trial was that Michelle Carter was mentally ill. The article that says she should not be guilty says that she was mentally ill and she was on a antidepressant called Prozac, and the side effects could have been what made her to do it. Common side effects of Prozac are that they can disrupt the frontal lobe function, which controls judgment, impulse control, and the weighing of future consequences. And the other article said that this was just not a valid or credible argument. So overall, the people who said that she was guilty said that her actions created a toxic environment, and her failure to act when she knew that he was in the car and there was something that she could do about it is what convicts her to be guilty. The side that says she's not guilty says that she's mentally ill and that her conviction is a violation of the First Amendment rights and the Fifth Amendment rights. Overall, I think that this is a really tricky topic because Michelle did not physically kill him, and as many people can argue, words can't kill. The article that we discuss in class, Why Do Teens Seem Strange Online, mentions how people act differently online than they do in person. So I wonder, I don't think that if she personally was there, she would have watched him and told him to get back in the car, but who's to say? Also mentioned in that article is that bullying and things online should be handled by teachers and parents and not police. But I think that once death is involved, it is definitely something that should be handled by the police. Personally, I think she should have been convicted because if it wasn't for her, he would have gotten out of the car and sought help like he did in the past. But she is the one who told him to get back in the car and go through with it. Overall, I don't think either of these articles are biased. Like I mentioned earlier in the video, they both present all of the information and present valid arguments and evidence toward their case. And if one article was withholding information, then that is a reason why I would say one is biased, but they really weren't. In conclusion, I feel as though everyone should be open to different ideas. If you feel strongly about something, then you should see multiple different articles and multiple points of views, because you never know, like one person's point of view and their arguments, they could be providing valid arguments, but just leaving stuff out. So in general, when assessing the media and reading different news articles, I think that we should just make sure that we're relying on more than just one source, so that we can get all of the information that we need to make our own personal opinions. The end.